Do I look 5 years younger? Colored my beard. And tomorrow before we film, gotta shave here. Anyway, we're just moving props down to the studio where we're shooting tomorrow, the loft downtown. Anyway, so Sid Rivers, I've talked a lot about to people who have been watching the show for the last year. But anyway, Sid Rivers came out of the fact that I worked as a bookie years ago in an office. Back then, you had to call into an office with about 10 men sitting in a smelly room for 12 hours a day sometimes, especially on weekends, and take bets. And there's a guy named, his code name was Phil Rivers. My name was Teddy Kopp. We all had different names. We really didn't know who. We didn't know each other personally, most of us. And it turned out he was a school teacher during the day up in Harlem, a math teacher. And at night, he would be a bookie, nights and weekends. He's just a crazy slob, but something about the guy was very sweet. And as I got to know him, I just was inspired to write Sid Rivers about an aging bookie who's trying to make one big score so he could go to Florida, get away from it all. So it involves boxing and all kinds of stuff, and it's a really fun movie. People have loved it. Everybody who ever read it, Chaz Palminteri, everybody who read it loved it. They loved it, everybody. And it had been around to Dustin Hoffman, almost did it, and then he had a personal disaster of some kind in his life, some financial collapse or something went down. There were people attached, everything. Finally, Joe Pesci optioned it, and we moved ahead with Arthur Penn, the famous director who did Bonnie and Clyde, to go ahead and do it. But point is, that came out of my life working in an office with these guys and drawing close to this guy, Philly Rivers. And so you base it on this, pretty close to the truth, except, you fictionalize the ending that he ends up and where he ends up and everything else. And so that was one that got bounced around. The budget for that was going to be, I think, $9 or $10 million, shot in New York City, Arthur Penn directing, Richard Brick was our producer. We had the storyboards up. It's one of the worst stories. The storyboards were up. We're all set. We had a production office just a couple blocks from the World Trade Center. And also Joe Pesci and Arthur Penn and I started to have a difference. I was just a writer, but Arthur Penn's directing it. Arthur did not want to make these changes that Pesci wanted to do, so they ended up having a big fight. And Joe Pesci told him to F off, and he told Joe to F off, and that was the end of it. This was a go picture, greenlit. I would have been paid, I think, $350,000 on the first day of photography. So that's another one. So, Sid Rivers.